So just as a commissioner, I hereby call to order the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners at 4:30 p.m. August 1st, 2022. I'll turn it over to you, Christine.
Sounds great. So hopefully everybody received their board packets. They were a little thick this month. My apologies. Lots of things. So the first order of business is to elect officers. So the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board has 3 officers that are normally elected at our annual meeting in November. However, the chair, who is Janet Kramer, and the vice chair, who is Donna Rathbun, have both resigned from their positions. Donna's term was over this year, and we knew that Janet was going to be, she had given us notice that she had been resigning at some point this year. I am the secretary every November. Last November, I was nominated as secretary. I take the notes for the meeting, etc. And traditionally, the executive director has always been the secretary of the board. So the 2 positions that are right now that are open are for the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships Board of Commissioners chair. And I was hoping to get a nomination for that from someone on the board.
I have a nomination.
Yes. And who would you like to nominate, Byron?
I would like very eagerly to nominate Liz Harrison.
Okay.
Well, I'm very honored.
And would anyone like to second that nomination?
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for this position? Okay. Would you like to vote? So I'm going to so would someone like to make a motion to nominate Elizabeth Harrison as the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners chair?
I shall move.
Okay. Would anyone be able to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. So the motion to nominate Elizabeth Harrison for the commissioner of the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners chair. Could I have a vote of yes? Please raise your hand. Okay. Nays? None? Great. Liz, you are officially the board chair for the remaining of this term, and thank you so much for stepping in. That's excellent. And we will then, the next motion will be to nominate a vice chair for the Board of Commissioners.
I'd like to nominate Alicia Underwood.
Thank you.
Would anyone second that?
Yes.
Okay, Byron, sounds good. Are there any other nominations for the vice chair position of the board? Okay. So could somebody please make a motion to nominate Alicia Underwood for the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners vice chair position?
I so move.
And a second? Byron? Okay. And could you please raise your hand if you're voting yes on the nomination of Alicia Underwood as the vice chair for the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board? Pat? Okay, great. 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 You are officially the vice chair of the board, Alicia. Thank you so much for for taking the position. Great. We can move on to business. The big formalities are over. So Liz, would you like to step in for the remaining of the agenda?
Sure.
Okay,
One thing I'd like to put in is, Gary, you weren't able to be at the last meeting and we haven't introduced ourselves to you or you to us. So I'd very much like to have you say a few words about you and introduce yourself to us.
Oh, okay. I'm Gary Stroud.
basically my interest was raised being involved with the BHP. I love the work that you're doing for the community and what's going on and what's coming down in the future. I'm also on the DRB, the Planning Commission. I'm also the chair and W8 District 2. I'm on the Park and Recreations Directors Board. I have many hats. So I felt being involved in this would make a difference in, helping the community and helping the people and getting people housing.
Very good. Super. So let's each introduce ourselves to just a sentence or two about ourselves. I'm Liz Harrison, and I've been with the board a number of years. I'm a board certified clinical nutritionist by profession, and I've been interested on personal level for family and always in housing for those in need. So, Alicia?
I am Alicia Underwood. I am a resident of Brattleboro and have been a long-term resident of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships at the Ledgewood site for many years. And then currently I'm a caregiver of my mom, who's a resident as well. I work for West River Valley Thrives in the Townsend area, but I've worked at Brattleboro Memorial Hospital for several years before that. So I've been on the board for a year now.
Great.
I'm flies.
Awesome.
Patricia?
Pat Green. I am a native of Brattleboro. I worked at the host sign for 42 years. I retired 17 years ago, and shortly after I moved to Sam Elliott Apartments. And I really feel and know what housing is, and it's a community in itself. Really, each unit's a community in itself, and they definitely. There's so many people out there that need housing and affordable housing, because I know my husband passed away. If I'd lived in a regular apartment, I don't know what I would have done. I couldn't have made it. So I'm here to see if I can help those that haven't experienced housing for 17 years, to see what I can do to help.
Great. Byron?
I had a motley career, and most recently have been doing affordable housing work in this area. Only for the last couple of years with the housing partnership.
Great. Thank you, everybody. It's helpful. I know. And we look forward to the time when we can all see each other live and shake hands and stuff. Item 3, have you all reviewed the minutes of June 25th? And does anybody have any questions? And if not, I'd need a motion to accept them.
I motion to accept them.
Right. In a second. Byron? Thank you. All in favor? Raise your
Aye.
Aye.
Passed. And the review of the minutes from July 21st, the special meeting. Any questions about that?
I move to accept the minutes of that meeting.
Anybody second?
A second.
All in favor? Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Great. Okay. Are there any residents and citizen participation? I don't think so.
No.
Okay. COVID-19 update. In the in-person meetings, we've been on Zoom for COVID for a long time. It's certainly absolutely convenient to be on Zoom, but there's a part of being on a board of getting to know your fellow members a little better when you've got eye-to-eye contact. So what are your feelings about moving toward in-person meetings? In the past, what we've done is rotate back around in the community rooms for the various properties. And certainly you'd have directions to get there and all, but what's the feeling of the board? Is it time to, or is it not time to?
I think it's time to. I mean, this COVID is going to be with us. Let's face it. And it's going to stay with us for a while.
Okay.
And I really feel we should be able to get in personal contact with the residents of each community. And if people feel comfortable wearing their masks, they may. And I will, if somebody wants me to wear a mask, I will do it. Because I've worked where there was a woman who had an organ transplant, so I definitely put on a mask for her. But I think it's been 3 years, give or take, 2 years anyway, since there's been in person. And I think it's time. And if we want to, when we have a meeting, just sanitize the tables. But I think it's high time we actually met the residents, because a lot of people have moved in the last 2 years.
Byron?
I would very eagerly second Patricia's proposal.
Okay. I'd like to bring up one little caveat that if we do have a snow day, that we don't skip the meeting, that we go by Zoom.
Great.
That, if something like that. And that could be. Christine, what's your thought on this?
I think that's great. I think that because it's a public meeting, we need to warn the meeting. So we need to decide when we would like to start. We don't have another meeting in August. Our next meeting will be September 26th. So we'll have September, October, and then our full annual meeting is in November. So would you like to start on the property site starting in September? So just to give you some information, so based on the open meeting law, the governor has extended the open meeting law to allow for remote meetings until the end of July, I think July of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So we aren't in any obligation to have a meeting in person, but I totally understand that it's something that we would like, and it's best practice. But it really depends on when you would like to start it. So we usually put out the schedule for the year in January. Would you like to wait until January to start it, or do you want to start in September?
We haven't heard from Alicia yet, and Gary. Gary, go ahead.
I guess, I have to concur with you, Patricia, because basically, well, right now we're meeting in person. It's hybrid. I don't know if that's something that is just going to consider for those who want to meet in person or still, Zoom in. I don't know if you're set up for that, but I have no problem meeting in person. I have a meeting tonight, meeting in person with the Planning Commission and with the DRB. So I believe a person has that comfort zone. It has to be, I guess, a consensus on everyone's part and feel safe at coming back to these particular sites, while watching, pretty much the tracking of this thing going up and down and the variants. I think people right now would know where they're at when that time comes, like especially during the winter, if you still want to meet in person. But I would think September probably be good to meet everyone in person. And just from that point, just take it from there. Pretty much like the way the select board does, we have to play it by ear to see where we're at with COVID, with the flu and all that. So I would think maybe in person one time this meeting, something like socialization, getting to know the people you work with, and also getting out there and meeting the people that you're doing business with.
Okay. Alicia, how do you feel?
Sorry, I have a personal emergency, so I have to go. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's just a family emergency. But I do feel like if there's a hybrid option, I would be up for that, at least until January, until I know a little bit more for these, like the colder months. Because COVID tends to spike in the colder months. So, yeah, that's just how I feel. If it's an option.
Maybe we could leave it that we take it meeting by meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to, so it has to be warned ahead of time. So it's not, I can't change it at the last minute by any means. So that's one piece that's a little tricky about snow days. But if we wanted to have a, we could do an in-person meeting. We don't have the same setup as the town, because we meet at the property sites, and depending on what the property site is, we might not be able to do a hybrid format, but we could certainly meet in person.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. I have to excuse it.
Perfectly fine. Family
Thank
comes
you.
first.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
I can talk to BCTV and try to get some resources to do a hybrid, but it's a little challenging in some of our property sites because it's not the same as setting up in the town where we have we won't have the same setup, but we can certainly meet in person if that's what people would like for September, for the remaining of the year, and then maybe decide for the next year's schedule.
Byron?
So like with the school board, is it the same thing, Christine, like how they got it set up with BC's? Because they have 360, they have ways, I guess, with your laptop or with the 360, they have very good remote ways of setting up, but it can be challenging for those who don't know how to use that type of technology. Yeah, so I didn't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, I can work with BCTV to see like how they can support us for sure, but it may be that we meet in person, and if we can get a hybrid format, we can, but we just might decide to meet in person. That might work a little bit better. I think I will find out from BCTV what the options are. When we discussed it earlier, we needed some forms of equipment that we just didn't have.
Okay.
Right.
Byron, you had something to say?
I wanted to move that we start meeting in person in November.
Okay, for the annual meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I think and where would that be held?
We could hold it at any of our housing sites. Normally, if we have the annual meeting, we've held it in public places. If we expected a large crowd, normally we would hold it at probably Red Clover Commons, because that's the biggest community room.
Yeah.
So is that September, November, or December? You wanted to meet early or later?
The November board meeting is our annual meeting, and that falls on, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but I can definitely pull it up. Let me see, hold on.
Is that a noon?
And it's a noon meeting.
Yeah. Daylight
okay.
driving is very important too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
So September would be basically this regular meeting, I guess, at 4:30 September, if everyone agreed. I'm meeting the first introduction is in September, I'm assuming. I'm just trying to get a clarity on that.
It's been offered, suggested that we start in-person meetings in November or September. And so I know it's harder for Alicia to do in-person meetings with her situation, but I think starting with starting the new year is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Patricia, are you okay with November?
I'm fine if everybody else is, because that will give us 2 months to
Get the communication issue set up. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that will give us some time to get up to figure out how to do the hybrid, to make sure that we're doing it properly. Right now, we have it hybrid in that we have a room set up so that if people do come to join the meeting, we have a computer set up for them to Zoom into. And that could be something that we continue to offer if people want to do a hybrid. I just have to talk to the BCTV about how to offer it. And I think we could definitely figure something out. But for the short term, having it for our annual meeting, which is on November 15th at noon.
Okay.
It's a Monday.
I think that's an easy way to start. Yeah.
And then the following month is a little off, because of the holidays. It is on December 20th. So it's a little earlier in the month, but that would be at the regular 4:30 time. And then at that point, we could decide what we wanted to do going forward for the new year with a schedule of rotating at the various housing sites.
Right.
Christine, did you say November 15th is on a Tuesday? Did you?
Let me see. I'm trying to pull it up. Hold on one second.
The 14th.
I'd have to double check. Let me double check and I'll get back to you. I wanted to say it was on unless I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, I'm looking at 2001. Hold on.
The 19th.
Hold on. I've got it right here. Excuse me. So November 14th is the annual meeting at noon. My apologies. And the December meeting is December 19th
Right.
at 4:30.
Okay.
So
do you have a calendar, I guess, Christine, that way I could put that and I could also coordinate it with my other meetings, so that way I know.
yeah. I will send that to you. I think it might have been in the briefing packets that you had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then for next year, I guess, for the month that comes up. Okay, perfect.
Okay. So do we need a motion for this, or?
I don't think we need a motion. I think we can plan on meeting in person on the
November.
starting in the November meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's taken care of. Again, property review and property managers report. Has everybody reviewed that? It's a green.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions about it? Byron?
I just wondered when the emergency rental assistance is due to end.
I feel like let me think, let me see. I think it's ending soon. I think the last time we looked, let me look.
I hate to see it go.
I know I think we've started to find that people have exhausted, we have several families that have exhausted the funds. I don't have an end date. The last I knew was it was going to run until the funds run out, and I haven't gotten an update about that. But we have had multiple families that have exhausted their amounts.
Right.
And those families, we have connected them to other resources that may be able to support in payment of rent. But we've had several families exhaust all resources.
It's hard. Yeah. Anything else on property management? Okay, the resident wellness.
I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
With that being said, is there anything with SEVCA? Are you working along with SEVCA for that, for any type of assistance?
Yeah, actually, yes. So SEVCA has really supported us in helping people to fill out the VRAP forms. And then if people have exhausted all of the funding for that, they've reached their maximum allowance, then they continue to work with SEVCA for their housing retention program. There's other resources in the community as well that some churches might be able to donate some funds. But some people just exhaust all the funds. And that's when we end up in a situation where there's really there's not a lot of options left if people have maybe not paid rent for 18 months in a row, then they have some big balances.
Yeah, I talked to Daniel Cliff. He did say there were some things coming down from the ARPA, but this is just because July was your fiscal year. There are some monies that are coming, so I'm just waiting to see what new information that's going to be sent out. To different programs and stuff, also through the United Way. And some of the churches now, the congregation, so I didn't know if you needed some information or a different support out there, because once the winters come, people are going to need that help to keep their heat electric and everything else going.
We do have a supportive services staff who are, so when residents are behind on rent or they haven't, they've exhausted all the VRAP funds, then we do connect them to our supportive services team, which works as a housing retention team, and they do support residents in finding other resources for rent.
Great.
Yep. For their portion of the subsidy, which is 30% of their income.
Yellow, the Wellness and Service Monthly Board Report. I think we did a great job with SASH moving out. Yes. Anybody have any questions on that? Go ahead, Byron.
It sounds like there's a lot of good community building effort at the family sites.
Yes.
I wonder if board members qualify for a pool voucher.
Yeah. Oh. And does everybody love the SASH Flash? Always good ideas, always good a recipe, and always good clinics. Go ahead, Pat.
I was thinking one thing I was noticing on a lot of the recipes, and having lived with a diabetic for years and years and years, a lot of them, it's too bad they couldn't have something sugar-free, because a lot of them have a lot of sugar in it.
A woman after my own heart.
Well, I totally agree with you. I'm also on that diabetes too myself, but I was told I have to watch my sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, healthy eating is the choice.
That's right.
So I'm with you on that.
Almost.
I will send Shauna a note and recommend a diabetic recipe. I think, I think they try to do different ones depending on heart health or meeting different vitamin needs, or so I will suggest. I know that there's at least 1 month that's a diabetes awareness month, and so I'll make that suggestion to her.
Great. Good. Have you all read the Red Clover Commons behavior expectations? I thought that was well written.
Yeah, that was Jake Bursky, the SASH coordinator for that housing site, has been working with residents for a few months on community relations and working together as a community. And this is what the group put together. I thought it was excellent.
Great. Anybody have any questions on it? Pat?
I just noticed now, of course, a lot of the Red Clover Commons are 65 and over, and more residents are coming in that are younger, a lot of them. So we're going to have to learn. We have much younger, some of them have a lot of problems, and it's something that we've all got to face as a community, how to really not snub them, just be kind. You've got to be kind. And it's becoming now, you have more and more of a combination anywhere from their 20s on up. So it's something these communities are going to have to really work with, because for so many years we were just old, older and disability. So it's going to be, we're going to have to learn to live respect to, even though we don't agree with some lifestyles, we have to do it. They're humans. As far as I had a grandson that was into the drug scene, and it's very hard. It's very hard. They're humans and they have a problem.
Right. Right. Agree with you there. Any questions about that? Or are we ready for the? Okay, so the next one would be this community health living plan, and all the clinics that they have, diets and walking club, Blue Squares, food bank, everything. I thought this was very well done.
This one here, yep.
Yes.
It's the green and white sheet. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Section 8 shelter plus care, transition to housing, monthly program updates. David, how is he doing, or is?
So David, so the Section 8 manager and grant manager is on a leave of absence at this point, and so it's an unexpected leave of absence. So it happened. Has been since July 5th, and so right now we're in the process of filling in with staff, taking on many of the other duties and trying to identify how to fill in for this position as he's out temporarily, and so. We do have many staff members who are filling in various areas, although it's a very large position and he has a lot of outreach with landlords in the community. So it's been a little bit of a challenge trying to make sure that all the pieces are covered, but we have a plan in place, and we are going to put out a ad to bring in someone to support that position.
Great. Okay. So we'll get a Go ahead, Byron.
Would you just let him know that we hope he's okay?
Yes, I absolutely will.
Please do.
Yes.
Please do. Good. Are there any questions about the June 20 comparable, the comparables or the checklisting for June? I thought it was well presented and Byron?
Are we looking at the consolidated report?
Yes.
For a while, I thought it was skilled management. But now I've figured it out. Every month, you finagle the budget just a little to make the income for the period look agreeably high and the expenditures agreeably low. It's very slick.
Now.
Well, we have a very keen financial accountant. Our fee accountant is right on top of this. So our financial team is extremely tight, and so we are on a very tight budget, as you know. We're trying to put as much in reserves as possible, with the understanding that right now we have been in a pretty comfortable situation in terms of receiving rent through the VRAP program. And we know that will be a challenge going forward once VRAP runs out. We also know that things are becoming more and more expensive. And so we are bracing ourselves for that.
I just think it's amazing how accurately you navigate this thing.
It is complicated. We have many different funding sources. We have different housing sites that have different funding sources, our tax credit properties. And so there are a lot of pieces that go into this for sure. Yeah. But so far so good. We're right on target for the first quarter. And I feel like we're in a good place going forward for the rest of the fiscal year. You will notice that we are low for the administrative salaries as well as our maintenance salaries. And that's because the budget had allocated for specific positions that we are just currently filling. So we've had a really hard time. We have not filled our maintenance. We have one position open for maintenance. We actually have two, but we have been advertising for one, and we've had a very hard time filling that position. And we are just brought in our administrative support person who started today. And we have a activities coordinator who will be starting next week, a part-time position. So we haven't been, we've been working really hard to try to hire for these positions. It has been a really challenging time to hire.
Yes, this has been for a lot of people. Yeah. Any other questions on the budget? All right. Check signing. I'm doing August. Alicia's doing September. We do need somebody for October. That means going over to Melrose Place usually on Fridays, in signing checks. Co-signing with Christine Hazard usually signs them, and then it has to have a second signature of a board member. So could I have a volunteer for October?
Is that in the afternoon or evening?
It could be in the morning.
The morning.
In the morning.
Early morning. I would volunteer to help her.
Okay, so how this, so the two board members will need to be added to our bank accounts as signers. So there is a little bit of a process there, which I will start to put into place this month. Our bank is moving. So our bank, which is People's Bank, is transferring to a new bank. This is not the greatest time to add them.
Right.
So I'm thinking that we will add them in September. And so it might make sense. So I think Gary should be added for October, but we might need to shift it if they haven't been added to those accounts by that time. But I can't imagine that it will take very long. I don't want to start that process right now, because this is when the bank is transferring everything over. And I think it would be a lag time. So
there's a lot of that going around. A lot of banks are merging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. 802 did that. I agree with you, Christine.
So I think we'll add Gary for October with the understanding that we might have to have someone else fill in for October if we don't have that in place.
Right.
I could do that if necessary.
Okay, great.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you. So I will be in touch with you both. There's lots of things that we're going to go over in the next month or two, but that will be part of that process, as well as adding you to become signers for the bank accounts.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Next, we have the draft policy review for camera surveillance policy. It's item number 9 on our agenda. And I believe this is going to need a vote. Has everybody read this so that you understand what the contents are? Does anybody have any questions about it?
Just one question I had to ask, Liz, is the cameras already installed? This is just going to be upgraded to newer, more different cameras, basically, if I'm understanding that right, Christine?
No, it's not. It's a great question. So the cameras are already in place. So at several of our housing sites, we already have cameras at Samuel Elliott Apartments, Red Clover Commons 1 and 2. And we do have some cameras that are placed at other properties, depending on different situations that are ongoing. But we don't have a specific camera policy in place. And we're getting more and more asks for footage of cameras, being able to share footage. And so we really felt like it was important to have a policy in place so that we really had a clear understanding of the rules around, getting public records.
Great. Pat, did you have a question?
We had a person that has since passed away. He had a camera in his peephole, and that should be a no-no. The camera's here for, I've got one right outside my door because it's by the elevator, is to, if there's any, they're more or less public. But I think this means stick a camera even, and this man actually had a camera in his peephole. And that's really not good. And so I think mainly this is what it's about. It's a lot to do with privacy, where to put them.
Yeah. So Pat, so that's a great point. So this is really about the cameras for BHP. So legally residents are able to put a camera in their apartment as long as it's not facing into someone else's apartment door, or it's not facing into some other area that's not that people would think that there was privacy. But people do have cameras on their door themselves or in their windows. This policy is specific for our cameras. So how we share information and how we gather information when needed.
That's clears it then.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to support this policy?
I move that we accept this policy.
So, just to back up. So thank you. I appreciate it. So this right now is the draft. So this will sit in draft form for a month. And
Oh.
then I just wanted to have you have an opportunity to look at the draft prior. We'll be voting on this next September. But if there was any questions, then I would take your questions or comments, and then I would bring it back to the attorney. And then, but I wanted to have you review it first and then bring that to the attorney.
Does anybody have any questions about any part of this?
I guess we'll wait to see what the attorney has to add or subtract from that.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any? Can we move on to the grievance and appeals for applications? Are there any questions about that? And if not, what about grievance and appeals for resident participation? Okay. Byron?
Just think it seems very good and very thorough. And I'm wondering, did the housing partnership just come up with this on its own?
So the video policy, we actually, another housing authority in Vermont shared with me their video policy. So we went off of that policy, which had already been approved by their legal counsel. So we had a place to start. And the grievance we've been working on for some time. And really it's just, we're changing our grievance policy just slightly so that it really reflects what we really do. In that when people have an appeal, we really have like an informal process where we try to make it very light so that people can meet with me, we can review the information, they have an opportunity to go over things and bring them to me before we go to a formal process. And so this really just outlines, I think, a little clearer what our process is, because I think a lot of times when people hear informal hearing, they think it's, they get really nervous, they don't know what to bring, but really it's an opportunity to just have a discussion. And a lot of times what happens is I'll just ask for additional information, or it gives us a place to start. And so that's why we wanted to change the language a little bit.
Sounds good. Any other questions?
So I guess I'm understanding with the final draft from the attorney, we have a chance to add or subtract or just send you information, Christine, but we might see that might need to be tweaked, or any questions to that aspect?
So what I'll do is, so we'll have this is the draft. So this is your opportunity to sort of let us know if there are things that you were concerned about. And then normally what I do is when after this point, I will send it to the attorney. And usually they'll just make sure that there's nothing, that legally it's binding. They probably won't make any major additions unless there's something that was wrong. I don't, and if that's the case, then I will bring that back to you with the edits for the next meeting. But if not, it will look exactly the way it is for your approval.
Sounds
And
good.
at that time, you can either decide to approve it or you could decide not to.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right. Projects in progress, Melrose Terrace flood mitigation. Those were great reports. Has anybody been over to the Melrose office and seen the gorgeous landscaping? When you
I haven't did my site visit yet.
I get to see it every day. It's really nice. Yeah, they have done an amazing job. So, and just so you know, I just got a notice, I think the end of last week, that pretty much everything is done at this point, except for the final plantings, which will go in at the end of the summer. So we're really, really close to the finish line. And I know the board had expressed potentially doing some sort of celebration with the contractor and the engineers. And so I think that the early fall would be a great time to do that.
Great.
Now, Christine, do you do site surveys? Like, do we go out like we do with DR, we go out to see the area to see progress or see the finished product? Or I don't know if that's something that's in the purview of BHP before you, or we, I mean, a lot said on the paper, which is good, but sometimes going there visually seeing
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, you're welcome to come by anytime. When we are
okay.
if we're building a property, so our last property that we built was Red Clover Commons 2. During that time, it was high COVID, so we weren't allowed to have people on site, but we did do some small tours. But for this project, especially because it's all outside, it's a huge flood mitigation project, which is on the property. You're welcome to start. I mean, it's finished now, but you're welcome to stop by. But the engineer had put out these reports weekly, which I think were really helpful for board members because it was such a large project and it was all construction driven. It was hard to see. It was a little different. Yep.
Great.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So feasibility study, that's been, do you have any comments of feasibility study?
So that was submitted. I haven't heard back. I checked my emails this morning. I haven't heard back if we received the feasibility study yet. At the time, we had applied for $10,000 to look at the feasibility of the remaining land at Melrose Terrace. And we're waiting for approval. They had suggested potentially that if we wanted to broaden our scope, we could apply for additional funding. So we're still in the process of deciding if that's what we want to do at this point.
Great.
So a quick question now, when they distribute the ARPA funds, how much does that go to? I mean, you have different projects that are going on. You got your road construction, then you got the house. Do they have that already put into place? So are you still waiting out to see how much that's going to be from the funding? I guess, I don't know if select boards already, or my pillars already made that determine how much each guy. So some of them already got a certain amount of monies that they're going to get for certain different things like broadband or something else. Do they do the same also for housing down this way, Christine?
So there are housing developers. So the housing developer really for this area is the Brattleboro Housing Trust. I mean, the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust.
Windsor, right.
Yeah. And so, but we do some housing development. And if you look in our strategic plan, that had been a question of what type of development we want to do. We don't have any more subsidies. So we don't have the ability to, so Brattleboro Housing Partnerships has a very deep subsidy in all of its housing sites. So we house people who are low and very low income. And we have exhausted our subsidies. We don't have any more. And so we don't have the ability to just, we can't just create housing with those low subsidies unless we have some sort of subsidy to put into those places. So right now we're not in the process of developing anything. We are looking at the feasibility of developing the property at Melrose Terrace because there are multiple buildings that are still here. And so this feasibility study will help us to determine whether or not we want to build housing here, if that's something that's even an option, given that this had been in the flood area for so long, and that's why we rehoused everybody. Given the tremendous amount of work we did for flood mitigation, once this land is reallocated by FEMA, we may be able to redevelop it. So this study kind of really will help us to start to plan out what we can and can't do. But we're not in the position right now to begin any new development projects outside of the ones that are on our housing sites. If you look at the strategic plan, we also talked a lot about, we have 2 aging properties, Moore Court and Hayes Court, which will rehabilitation. So it could be that we focus our energy on those property sites and rehabbing those as well. And, so we do have projects in the future, but they might not be the development projects because we don't have any funds to develop right now. And we don't have any subsidies to offer that deep subsidy at this point.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions before we move for SASH for All? I think SASH for All was somewhat covered in your earlier report.
Yeah, so the SASH for All program, which is the earmark from Bernie Sanders, we are beginning to, so that funding will start as of September 1st. And so we're hoping to have someone in that position to start coordinating in that role. And that will be a full-time coordinator for SASH for All, which will work specifically with the family site. So residents who are, so the SASH program always has served residents on Medicare. This will serve residents on Medicaid as well.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And a mental health clinician and a nurse will also be embedded in the program.
That's good.
It's really good. Hiring, excuse me, I'm sorry, Byron. Go ahead.
Going back, I'm sorry, the SASH report. Is family self-sufficiency still exist in the way it did for so many years?
It does. So it does. It has a new name. It's Education and Employment Coordinator is running the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And the Family Self-Sufficiency Program is a HUD-funded program that helps people to either reach employment or to learn job skills through education.
And to set aside some income.
And to escrow income if their income goes up while they're in the program.
Good, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah. So we still have that, and we'll be applying for that grant funding for next year as well. And the nice thing about becoming a moving to work agency is in the next years, if we decide to change that program, there are some waivers specific to the Family Self-Sufficiency Program so that we could make some adjustments to the program.
Great. Any other questions about SASH for All, which I think is fabulous?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's great.
What about hiring?
So hiring, I mentioned a little bit about this. So we have hired somebody as an office support administrator, and that will be someone who will support the occupancy team as well as other positions in the organization doing admin support and office management. We have a part-time person who's starting for our programming, and that's only a temporary part-time program, and it will last just a few months. It's a pilot to see if it's something that seems to work well. We've been really struggling to get participants at some of our programs at our property sites, so we're hoping that this person will be able to engage residents in a positive way. And then we are in the process of hiring for a new SASH coordinator because we got additional funding, which will be expanding the SASH program to Bellows Falls. And that will be a part-time position at Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, and then also working with Stewart Property Management at the Canal Street property.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we've been wanting to expand to Bellows Falls for 10 years. And so we finally received the funding, and so we will be expanding this month. So it's
all right. That's great. Good news.
Yeah.
I like that.
Great. All right. Any other questions about anything?
I'm all questioned out.
Well, feel free to send me questions. It's really helpful in emails. I know several of you we're all learning. So we're all learning every day. So if you have any questions, please, the best way to reach me for sure is by email, and then I can think about it and then respond. And it's great to send it to everybody, because we might, you all might have a similar question.
Right.
I mean, we can't make any board decisions, but outside of our meetings, but if you wanted to just ask questions, it's a good opportunity as you're learning. This is a very complicated, this is a complicated board in many ways. We have different funding sources, lots of regulations. So there's no bad questions. They're all helpful because we're all learning. And just so Pat and Gary knows, in the next month, and the next 2 months, really, you'll be receiving a lot of information to me around a lot of information about orientation. And so we have a board orientation committee, which I think is going to meet hopefully again soon. And we wanted to start a mentoring program for new board members to be assigned another board member. So you'll be hearing from us And that will give you another opportunity to ask lots of questions.
Super. That's super.
That's great. I just try to get more information on SASH, and I hear it a lot, even in select board, different all the time. And I really want to get more info, because I know about all the stuff that's going on in Groundworks. They just got another one that HealthWorks they just opened up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get more information on what's coming. Even like I'm on Canal Street that they're offering, even in the housing specter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. I'm excited.
Good.
So yeah, expect a lot of questions. I'm going to come up with my yellow pad and pencil.
Great. Well, we've had a busy few years. You know, we built a new building. We rehoused 25 people. We've became a moving to work agency. We've done a lot in the last few years. So we have lots of projects on the horizon. So you'll have lots to be involved with.
Good.
So I got one question, and then I'm like Columbo. One more question, man. That's now they're going to be doing that bridge down that way. Well, not quite yet down on there on West B. I don't know if you've heard about the project.
Mm-hmm.
So that being so, would that be a sort of kind of like not an interference, but interruption or hiccup for down there in that area? Because that's coming down the pipeline as well too, and being that's in the floodplain and all that and everything. So I was just curious. So I had some more in-depth questions, but I wanted to ask you in person so I could see the expressions on your face.
I think that the bridge is needed, and I think that we'll work around it. It is at the end of Melrose Street, which comes into Melrose Terrace, but we have other access, which is George Miller Drive, and so we'll probably be with everybody else, waiting to get over the bridge during construction. And I can't foresee, we did all of this work, and it's really made it so that we're actually in a better position now that we did all this flood mitigation work at Melrose, because George Miller Drive is in a much safer place than it was prior to doing all this work. So doing that bridge at the end of Melrose now is actually is less stressful for us than if they were to do it before we did all this work, because we'll still be able to enter and exit the property easily on George Miller Drive.
Good.
Oh, okay. Because the way they mapped it out, it's with the trucks and everything. That's going to be another interesting project along with the bridge.
Since we're right on time for our hour meeting, does anybody have anything else they want to discuss, or do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a great meeting. Thank you for your participation. First time we've all kind of been together, and we've got good plans for the future.